Today is Saturday, February 13th of 2021, and I am halfway to Dayton, Ohio on my Smaller Parks of Ohio Tour 2021. We'll be visiting Scene75 in Dayton, as well as the location in Columbus. I must be out of my mind.
Yes, you are, me of the past. Yes, you are. Scene75 trip, part 2. Now, Scene75 Columbus is located at the mall at Tuttle Crossing in a former Macy's department store. It operates on 2 levels, with the upper level being home to their go-kart track, as well as the Nuclear Rush roller coaster, a roller coaster from SBF Visa Group. The lower level features a small drop tower that juts between the floors, a set of spin zone bumper cars, a blacklight mini golf, as well as a majority of their arcade games and amenities. When planning my trip to both Scene75 in Dayton and Columbus, the question, first and foremost, was which park do I start at? Now, on paper, one may say, oh, Scene75 Columbus is closer, which is true. It was 3.5 hours away from my starting point. However, practicality dictates to drive past it, which I did. I drove the extra hour out of my way to go to Scene75 Dayton first. And the reason being, so I wouldn't have to backtrack that extra hour. So I get into my car, and I bid adieu to Scene75 Dayton, and then I plot the coordinates into my GPS, and then around 6 o'clock I'm on the road again, heading to the mall at Tuttle Crossing to visit Scene75 Columbus. It's at this point I'm on the highway that I'm looking in the rearview mirror and I see the clouds start to gather, and then I realize that the winter storm that they've been calling for all week is about to become a reality. So now I have 2 objectives. First is to visit Scene75 Columbus. Second, and most importantly, to get home safely. So I arrive at the mall at Tuttle Crossing at 7 o'clock exactly. And at this point, it is completely dark out, with the only illumination being the street lights in the parking lot. So I'm sitting there, I make another vlog entry, and then I get out of my car and I head on over to the entrance. And Scene75 Columbus, at least from the outside, is the epitome of don't judge a book by its cover. You walk up to this entrance facade and just these plain letters lit up, Scene75, over the doorway, and you just have this standard mall mezzanine you'll walk through, and then everything opens up. To the left of you, as soon as you walk in, is the go-kart track. That takes up a majority of the top floor. And to the right of you is the reason I came to Scene75 Columbus, the Nuclear Rush roller coaster. I start out by going over to the Nuclear Rush, a small, compact figure-8 coaster from SBF Visa Group, which is in fact their most common coaster model to boot. And I get in line, and the wait was about 20 to 30 minutes. While I'm waiting in line, I'm taking into account the theming around the coaster, as there are several signs that hint that this is a nuclear reactor that's going off, and warning there are high levels of radiation. This, coupled with a brilliant lighting package and a beautiful painted backdrop, made the coaster much more impressive than it actually is. I scanned my reload card. It was fairly priced, about $6 a ride, and I choose my seat. and I was seated at the very back of the train. And with that, the ride commenced. And here's where it gets interesting. About midway through the ride, I noticed that the ride operator was shouting at another one of the riders. And it was undiscernible for a moment, but then it soon became clear. He was shouting, "Put your phone away." So I look, and I notice. Indeed, one of the riders has their phone out trying to record a POV of the coaster. And with that, the ride operator brings the train to a dead halt. And he tells the rider who had their phone out, "I will start the ride again, but you have to put your phone away." And to this I applaud him. Because, hey, I love roller coasters as much as the next person. But you have to adhere by the rules. As holding a phone out during a ride can be dangerous. It can become a projectile. So with that, the ride started again. And it is perhaps one of the craziest SPF Visa spinners I have ridden. Maybe it was because of the circumstances that led to the extra ride time. Maybe it really was just that insane of a ride. Maybe it was because the trains were only half loaded due to the pandemic. But I spun an insane amount of time. After departing Nuclear Rush, I took some more pictures and copious video. And then I went over to the drop tower. And I'm observing it from the second level as it rises up and then halts midair, and the riders are spinning for a second before they drop down to earth, and I am recording video footage, and then suddenly I remember why I'm not a vlogger. Because midway through that clip, I get an alert on my phone saying memory is low. With the realization that I was running low on memory, I abandoned the whole vlog concept entirely, opting to stick to photography for the remainder of my visit. I then looked at the time, and it was getting closer to 9 o'clock. So I thought, hey, I didn't do the go-karts at Scene75 Dayton. Let me do them here so I have a feel for what they're like. I head over to the go-karts, and to my dismay, there's a sign on full display saying the next race isn't until around 9:30. And me, with a 3.5-hour drive ahead of myself still, I decided to forgo riding the go-karts. So unfortunately, I do not have a feel for what the go-karts are like at either Scene75 Dayton or Scene75 Columbus. With that, I decided to do a quick photo run of the lower level. This is where all of the games were, a few of the rides, the mini golf. And I decide, hey, I might as well use some of the balance left on my card to do one of the games. So I did. It's one of those coin pusher games. And I ended up getting a few souvenir tokens, which was my only souvenir of the trip. And I'm walking, and I encounter the Spin Zone bumper cars, and I also encounter something I hadn't seen at any park before. And it was a big poster that said Selfie Station. And here's where perhaps the funniest thing happened. I took a photo of the selfie station without taking a selfie in front of it. The irony does not escape me on this one. I made my way back to the escalator, and before departing, I noticed a sign at the door which said, "Best day ever at Scene75." And you know what? I tend to agree. Scene75 Columbus, while not the largest park, is a lot of fun. And for a family on a budget on a Saturday, you can't go wrong. So until otherwise proven, in my opinion, Nuclear Rush is my favorite compact SPF Venus